All right, welcome back to Within Podcast. Today you have Nicky Wallace and Heidi Buttoph. We're excited to talk about probably a topic that we've all experienced at some point within organizations. It's don't let the process trump common sense is how I say it. I feel like Heidi said it differently, but processes over, or people over processes essentially is I think how Heidi said this topic. So Heidi, do you want to start and we can just kind of talk about experiences in this area?
Well, and I mean, what brought that up is you think about starting up organizations, right? Or whether it be a small to medium-sized business or a larger organization. I've always felt the kind of the emotional intelligence is what's really important, and just really the people. Because you were in the field of hiring people. I, led a HR team. And so we were doing all of it. But the importance of hiring really good people was really, at the essence of what the success of the organization. Mm-hmm. And I know as we grow and so forth, processes need to come into place just to create efficiency and so forth. But I have been, when I was part of a Fortune 100 company, it just felt like we were always implementing more and more processes or models that then people had to, have either on their desk posted somewhere or memorized. And it just got to a point of complexity. And it's just like, keep it simple, and let's focus on the people that you're bringing into the organization and what and again, I know people will probably say, well, a process is job descriptions. How do you know what their role is if you don't have some of those things in place? And I'm not discounting the value of having all those very things in place. It's just more, how do we start with the human element and getting to know people and building the trust and communication. We've talked about communication and the importance of communication. You could have all those things in place. And if you don't have the appropriate amount of communication, and again, just building those relationships with the people and building the trust and so forth, I don't really think it'll matter how many processes or models you have in place.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm working with a couple of different companies that are scaling quickly right now, and so yes, I agree. The thing with processes and strategy and all of that structure, I do think people thrive when they have a little bit of process and structure. Like everybody needs to know what box they need to play in, right? But I think that, like I started the show with, is we used to always say in a prior company I worked for is, don't let the process trump common sense. So especially when you're in front of customers or, I feel like they trained us so much on like, this is, we had all the sheets at our desks that we were supposed to follow and we role played and did all the things. So they did a good job training us. But I think some of the folks in the field, they would get like paralyzed almost by like, oh, the client said XYZ. So it's like they were trying to catalog in their minds on like, what am I supposed to do and say next? And it's like, sometimes there's going to be gray area. And I think recognizing that is what you're saying, and making sure that there is room to be able to interpret things or process things differently as situations come up, because humans are buying and humans are running the organization. So...
Yeah, well, and if you let the process dictate, I mean, it'll be like robotic, right? To a certain degree, instead of just letting the personality come out and helping, yes, there's always going to be guardrails. I don't mind the guardrails. It's just allowing them the freedom to be them and to, make decisions based on what they feel is right, given how they have been trained and the experience that they bring to the table and so forth. So that's just the biggest element when I look back on, because, at the end of the day, we're all human. There's some concern too with, as we talk about humans and roles and now AI, things will evolve and certain roles may go away because of processes and technology take over. And so it's like, how do you continue to elevate or appreciate or leverage the human element of an organization to differentiate yourselves?
I think a lot of it too comes back to, as I'm helping this one organization kind of build out a lot of their process and strategy is, understanding your foundation, where the organization is going. And I think like the communication there, like that very foundational piece, because if you start with a strong foundation and your team is communicating and everybody knows why they're there and what their roles are and how we're all working together for the greater good, then as you build kind of some of those processes and all the things that come along with growth, the empowerment piece is there, that they can make those decisions when the gray area comes in or when the customer calls and is pissed off because something happened that we've never had happen before, and they're able to pivot because, they have some of that, they feel empowered by their organization or their leader to be able to, live in the gray area and make those decisions. So,
yeah, no, I agree.
Everybody needs to know the North Star, because I think that happened, or that's where a lot of that, and hire people that you trust, hire people and give them the experience and the knowledge that you trust, that they'll make the decisions or at least come talk to you if they don't know how to.
Well, and oftentimes those people might come on board and have their own ideas that could be even better, and whether you call it challenging the status quo or just empowering them to kind of ask why do we do it this way, or have you thought of, and just, again, allowing the people to maybe control a little bit more of that versus the process controlling. Like I do love how you said, don't let the process trump common sense. Instead, it's there to pave the way and provide the guardrails, but still the human element and the people decision making and communication are what I believe are the most important.
Yeah. I mean, most of my career, and I know a lot of yours, has been with very people heavy roles. So, in the staffing world, if somebody doesn't go to work, you don't get paid, literally. Like that's how the setup was. So, I think the good people in that area, they're able to kind of understand, like, hey, here's the tools, here's the process, here's the things that probably will happen, and the things the recipe that I need to follow. But then, when Joey calls in and something's going on with his kid and he doesn't have a car and a ride to work, and it's like, you got to know how to pivot. And I always, that was one thing I appreciated with all the training. But as the company grew, like, I felt very empowered to, do what I needed to do to make the human element, not be like a big deal, really. So they always taught us to just you're not selling, you're at the end of the day building relationships. So I was always grateful for that training they gave us. But
and I think in general, and I love hearing that, Nikki, because once you feel empowered, I mean, that's what's most fulfilling, when people can come in and again, use their training, what they've learned, but do what they feel is right and grow in it, and seek out new opportunities as well, or, maybe even enhance what they're already doing, what they came into and so forth. So I love that empowerment element.
So where do you feel like you've seen, or where have you seen, I guess, over your career, like organizations get this kind of wrong, or like organizations struggle with this?
I think sometimes it is just the shiny objects, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just focusing on what's already going great, we keep on implementing new processes, may not be, but models. Leadership models, or, you go through how many different kinds of leadership training because there's a new, and granted, I'm not saying that leadership doesn't evolve over time too,
right?
But it's sometimes like, how many different assessments should we do? Team assessments, leadership assessments, they kind of sometimes evolve too because of the different leaders that come into the organization, and they use that at a prior organization. And like I said, sometimes that's what you have to be open to. But if it changes on too regular of a basis, it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, then you have all these models and processes that you have to know and try to figure out, where they're not always common sense. Like you said, there's something that you have to constantly study or have, eyeballed. And so I just think we just have to be careful in organizations that you don't overwhelm your workforce with all different kinds of work models. So maybe process and how they go about their work, but then also all the other things that you add on top.
Yeah.
from a leadership perspective and things like that.
And I think while you were talking about that, this made me even think of like, as we've been growing as an organization, like the technology has, I never expected when I starting a business that technology would be like the thing that paralyzed me, because there's just so many options. There's so many different, here's, you need to do bookkeeping, and now here's 50 options. And like, you got to figure out which system is the best. And half the time, like, we don't really know, right? Because I didn't start a business to do bookkeeping, so I don't know what software I'm really needing at the end of the day. So I do think that's hard on employees when you're constantly like, hey, this is how we're using this system, or, oh, we're not using this system anymore, we're flipping to this one. And I think in an ever-changing world, like you had brought up AI and tech, it's good for leaders, I think, to stay cognizant on, like, even if you spend, time all the time every week on technology that's coming up, or how to implement things through technology, or have your processes go a certain way through technology, your employees aren't always that adept or able to adapt to some of that technology change. So I think being super aware as you make some of those system changes. I see it sometimes too when I help companies implement like HRS systems. It's like you spend all this time as the leader implementing the system, and it's going to do all these great things, and these leaders are going to be self-service, and they can go in and put in their own requisitions. And I think a lot of companies get frustrated because then 50% of the people or more like don't actually use the system how it's intended. It's like, because they have a job on top of that. They don't know or have the time to be able to, and then go self-teach themselves on how to use this system, or how you're asking them to use this system. So I just thought of that.
Yeah, we oftentimes think we're implementing processes and systems to make work better or easier. And sometimes, like you said, it just adds more complexity or frustration. And so maybe at the end of the day, it's just asking, is this new process, new system, whatever you want to call it, is it really going to help our people be better? I'm not a big believer of more is better, but better is better. And how do we just make sure that and you're not going to get buy-in from everyone, especially the bigger the organization. No. You have to make decisions, and they just have to deal with it. But then again, you have to think about how you work through the change management element of it too. And so at the end of the day, is just making sure that we're evaluating what we're implementing based on how it'll help our people.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So organizations are ever changing, no matter, I don't care what size you are or what industry you are. I feel like just you have to evolve, but just be smart about it. So
I agree.
Good. Anything else on this topic?
I don't think so. We'll see if we get any reaction from this one.
I know. I do feel like people get very, when we talk about some of the process and technology and all that, I do feel like people are very opinionated on kind of how to implement that, or what should happen or shouldn't happen, or whatever. So it's always a hot topic for whatever reason. So probably because it impacts your people so much. But well, good. Well, thanks for joining us on today's episode of Within, and we'll see you next week.